Hey guys, I'm Ryan and I'm wearing the new Fitbit Sense 2, and I've noticed a few really cool things about it, but also a few things that just don't make any sense and sometimes make life so much harder, plus a few deal breakers, and I'll talk about all those things. So the Fitbit Sense 2 at its core is basically the same as the original Fitbit Sense, which by the way has become the trend among the smartwatch manufacturers this year. Seriously, I mean look at the Apple Watch, Galaxy Watch 5 and the GARMIN Venue 2 Plus. This means that in terms of the core hardware, almost everything is exactly the same. But what has changed is that the size of the watch has shrunk and the casing is now smaller, but the display size remains the same. That's what I want to hear. I wouldn't have come near this watch if they also made the display smaller than this. So that should already improve the comfort just a tiny bit, the fact that it's a bit smaller now. But one of the distinct features of the original Fitbit Sense was the indent on the side of the watch, which acted as a button. But it was just a weird, quirky touch button that, while it looked cool, it wasn't always very practical. And when I reviewed that watch 6 months ago, it either didn't work when I wanted it to work, or I would just accidentally trigger it when I didn't mean to. And so what the guys over at Fitbit have done is that they removed the indent and replaced it with an actual button. This is now way more functional and easier to use if you ask me. So problem number one fixed. And in case you didn't know, the Fitbit brand was acquired by Google in 2021. And because of that, some people were speculating that the next watches would probably be shipped with Wear OS of Google. But fortunately, that didn't happen. Why am I happy about this? Well, the answer is twofold. First of all, the Fitbit Sense 2 has a multi-day battery life, anywhere between 3 to 6 days. And if this watch was running the Wear OS, you could have just kissed goodbye that kind of battery life. Second of all, the UI of the operating system of Fitbit Sense looks awfully like the Wear OS. And so if you put a Galaxy Watch and a Fitbit Sense next to each other, you're gonna find a lot of similarities between the two. Now, of course, the ecosystem is not the same and you can't have access to all the features of the Wear OS. But anyways, the UI of the watch, just like that of the old one, is quite beautiful and with great looking colors. And as a watch with an AMOLED display, the Fitbit Sense, in my opinion, has one of the most gorgeous looking UIs. And like I said, the UI is quite smooth, but definitely not Apple Watch like smooth. And for a watch this price with these features, I think I'm quite okay with it. And just so you know, in terms of the look and feel, it does feel like a premium watch when you hold it in your hand. And they have different watch bands to choose from that can make it even more stylish if you want to. So 6 months ago, I reviewed the original Fitbit Sense watch, and it came out with an electrodermal activity sensor, which allowed me to measure my stress levels on the spot by putting the palm of my opposite hand on the watch for a short while. But do you see a problem here? Because there is one. Well, the problem was that a lot of people rarely use that feature because it required the user to be proactive enough to measure their stress levels. And so in my opinion, that was a big flaw of that watch. But fortunately, now you get a continuous all-day body response tracking, so you don't really need to do anything special, but you still have the option of doing that kind of on-demand body response check. And in fact, the continuous EDA is off by default, so you should enable it yourself, but of course, that'll affect the battery life. But Fitbit's new algorithm can actually detect physical response to both good and bad stress, and so you might even get a response from drinking that 5th cup of coffee or right before or after doing certain things that you might do regularly. And so it could potentially help you figure out, this cause and effect and how many times they occur. But to get the most out of this feature, you should also log how you were feeling at that moment that you got a response. And if you don't, you're probably gonna forget why and how you were affected at that specific moment. So next time, if your watch prompts you with a body response, just quickly log how you feel. But I think it would have been really nice to be able to actually write down something, not just use the presets available on the watch and app. This continuous measurement opens the door to the possibility of getting high stress notifications and doing something about it, like deep breathing, going for a walk or whatever. And actually the watch has guided breathing sessions on it, which is good. And if you do decide to go for a walk or do any activity for that matter, the watch can track a lot of activities automatically. And you can even set a timer for how long it takes for the watch to start tracking the activity. So these days, a lot of smartwatches show you your heart rate. But this watch also shows you your HRV, which stands for heart rate variability, which is essentially the time between each heartbeat. Now, single HRV readings can hardly have any meaning, but an HRV trend over time is where it could potentially reveal more information about your health. And generally speaking, you want to have an upward trend. And so this is a feature that you'll get with this watch, but the thing is, it's not available in all countries. You see, the problem with these health smartwatches is that some of their features need to be approved by the health authority of each country, or regions separately, and that can take time. And since I've been following the Fitbit community and their discussions, it sounds like Fitbit is very passive about this, while they can always try to push these approval processes through constant communications with these health authorities. And the reason I think this is important to talk about is that you pay $300 or euros or however much you pay in your currency, and you may end up not getting some of these important health features. Things like the ECG app, irregular heart rhythm notifications, SpO2 monitoring, and so on. And so this brings the value of the watch much lower than that $300 asking price. But anyways, another feature that also the new Samsung watches and Apple watches have is the skin temperature sensor, but none of these watches show you your actual temperature. Instead, the watch is just gonna get a baseline temperature and will show you the deviations from the baseline, and it's only available in the Fitbit app, not on the watch. Sometimes I just wonder, how is it possible that every manufacturer makes the same mistake? They choose the same approach, which nobody likes. This is one of those. I want to see not just a baseline temperature, but my actual skin temperature. I want to see it on the watch itself, not just the app. And to add insult to injury, this feature again is only available in select markets. We have kind of the same problem with the sleep tracking feature. So the sleep tracking is actually pretty good, and I think there may have been improvements in their algorithm as well. So no complaints there, and in fact in the app you can see a lot of details and all the different sleep cycles. What hasn't changed since the older model is that when you wake up in the morning, you can't see your sleep score on the watch until you've synced the watch with the app itself. And even after you sync them up, you can only see the sleep duration and sleep score. Not any other details like the time you went to sleep and woke up and the duration of all the stages of your sleep separately. So here again, we have a very good functioning feature, and yet again, it's not done right. Another thing that I'm actually quite happy with is the HR consistency. I haven't had time to try running and seeing if it can keep up, but under normal use, it's been pretty good. One thing that I hated about the Fitbit Sense was how bad their step counting was, but it also seems like there have been improvements with their algorithm, but it still counts more steps than it should. And in terms of activity tracking, there are quite a lot of sports and activities that you can track. But for example, I wouldn't personally want to track my workouts with this watch because I can't set targets for number of sets and reps and track them. So another reason to buy this watch is its multi-day battery life. If you use the continuous EDA measurements and you use the GPS moderately, you should be able to still get up to 3 days. And if you use the GPS less often, you can probably even get 4 days of battery life. The charger that comes with it is a special one. It's magnetic and it's easier than plugging in a cable, but to be honest, it would have been even easier if it had wireless charging like the Galaxy watches. But anyways, it charges quite fast, and in just 10-12 minutes, you get a day worth of battery. And I guess the fact that so many things can only be seen on the app actually helps with the battery life. And the app is also quite good with this waterfall looking style that you can reorganize, hide, or add items to. What's not so good, and this is one of the biggest cons of this watch, is that there are a lot of features that are behind a paywall. I'm not against subscription services by any means, but I'm against having to pay for something upfront and then again having to pay a monthly fee on top of those to fully take advantage of that product. And if, let's say, you use your watch for 3 years, you end up paying more or less twice the amount you paid to get your hands on the watch in the first place. And I'm not saying it's not worth it, because Fitbit actually has some of the best and most meaningful stats and insights I've ever seen. And going for the Fitbit Premium will only make that better, like an advanced sleep score analysis, daily readiness score, snore detection, etc. Another thing I wasn't happy to see was that if I don't start an activity manually myself, like walking or running, then the automatic tracking won't use the GPS at all. And so if you want the GPS, you need to start the activity yourself and also enable GPS tracking just before you press start. But also one time when I used the auto tracking feature when I went for a walk, the activity started, but as soon as I tried to interact with the watch, use the watch for a little while, the watch crashed and the activity didn't get saved on the watch. And here are the actual cons, and it's a deal breaker for me. So apparently the Fitbit Sense 2, unlike the previous model, doesn't have a Wi-Fi connection and only works with Bluetooth. And unlike the old watch, it doesn't have music controls. And at the moment, you can't make calls with it, although I believe that will be added at some point in the future. And on top of all these, they have removed support for third-party apps. Think about it, no third-party apps. which means it's gonna be a very boring watch despite being able to running different apps. I mean, it's a successor of the original Fitbit Sense watch, which supported all those features I mentioned. Why on earth would they remove those? So I have a theory. So think about it. Google's Pixel Watch is right around the corner, and they own the Fitbit brand, and they release a watch just before the Pixel Watch is about to come out. Of course they're gonna downgrade that one. Even things like Google Maps are listed as coming soon for Fitbit Sense 2, but what does that mean? Does it mean next week, next month, or next year? Who knows? And the worst part is that so many disappointed people like you and I have bought this watch and have gone ahead and created a request for Fitbit and voted to add support for third-party apps, which is great. But guess what they responded? They immediately marked the request as not currently planned. So because of this, I recommend the Fitbit Sense 2 only if you want the continuous EDA measurements. Otherwise, if you really want a Fitbit Sense watch, just buy the previous one if you can find one. I'll put the link in the description for you, but there are only a few left in the stock as of now, so you better hurry. But if you're looking for alternatives, I recommend checking out the Garmin Venue SQ2, Galaxy Watch 5, and Apple Watch SE. I hope you liked it, subscribe if you haven't, and consider hitting the thanks button below.